Hi, my name is Sally Breckenridge and I'm the author of iWeaveIt. Last year I did a video on weaving with the rigid heddle loom and using iWeaveIt for the drafts. This year, well, after I did that, I got a lot of questions on how to use multiple heddles on the rigid heddle loom. So I did some research, and this year I want to show you how to use iWeaveIt with multiple heddles on a rigid heddle loom to weave multiple shafts weaving drafts. The loom I'm using is a 2-heddle rigid heddle loom, and if you have more heddles, then the principles that you learn in this will apply to each additional heddle that you might have and use in your loom. So here we go. My loom is beamed with a warp using the scraps of DK knitting yarn. Knitting yarn works okay on a loom as long as you keep the tension tight while weaving and realize that it will collapse more when you release the tension. I used a warping board to wind my warp for the loom. I created a cross on the warping board and I've threaded the loom from the back, and I beamed it on the back. I will thread it here and I will wind it onto the front beam. The cross will keep things in order while I thread. For review, a rigid heddle loom can represent a standard weaving draft with one shaft more than the number of heddles. One heddle up can do 2 shafts, an upstroke and a downstroke. 2 heddles can do 3 shafts, 1 shaft for each heddle up and 1 for both heddles down. 3 heddles can do 4 shafts, 1 shaft for each heddle up and 1 for both heddles down. Now let's look at iWeaveIt. You can see that I have loaded a 3-shaft pattern. This pattern was downloaded from handweaving.net, and you can tell by the numbers, they number all of them. You'll also notice that I'm using a mouse rather than a cursor, and it makes it much easier to record because you can see where I tap and touch. So I have a classic 3-point twill, 3-shaft point twill, and I can weave this using 2 heddles on my rigid heddle loom. Let's look and see what else I can weave. I have opened up here and showing you my recents. I've downloaded a lot of these drafts from handweaving.net. There are quite a few and really interesting patterns. Handweaving.net, I found like over 1,000 patterns for 3-shaft looms. So there's an endless supply. We will look at, back to this one, you can edit and the treadling by tapping the threading and tapping the treadling to edit. That's not our concern today. There are other videos on iWeaveIt that show all of the features, the editing features, all the different features. So we will use some of them later on, but right now let's go and learn how to thread this threading, which is just a simple point threading, on iWeaveIt. These suggestions help you to decide how to map each shaft on your loom to a mapping key. Look at the draft for the most warps that are used on a shaft. Make this one your down shaft. If there's the same number of warps on each shaft, then make the down shaft the second warp from the right, or the second thread in your draft. Thread from the right to the left and set the heddle for the first thread to be the closest heddle to you. Assign the rest of the heddles to the other shafts in whatever order is easiest to remember. I created a printed draft for translating the shaft draft to the heddle draft for your loom. You can find this in the notes below the video and download it. It's a PDF. On the form, you see the slots are represented by squares. The holes represent the holes in your shafts. I have 2 heddles, so this is a 2-heddle form for a 3-shaft drawing. The first thing I do is to create the heddle key. The heddle key, I look at my draft, I see that I have 4 threads on shaft 2, and that would be the most, so I'm going to make it the down shaft. I have the other 2 shafts I'm going to make simple by making this heddle 1 and this heddle 2. And that is the key that I will use for drawing my threading. Now to create the threading. Create the guide for 1 repeat of your draft. Keep it as simple as possible. You thread from the right to the left. Use the thread map key to know which hole and which slot to use. Here are the rules. Each warp goes through a hole on the heddle it's assigned to, as well as all the slots on the other heddles from the back to the front heddle. If the warp is on the down shaft, it goes through all the slots and no holes. And do not cross any threads. Using my heddle key, I am now going to draw in the shafts. The first thread goes through heddle 1. This is heddle 1 at the bottom. The rule being it has to go through all the slots in the other heddles and through heddle 1, and I'm going to draw it to the side so it goes this way. And I'm just going to put a dot here to know that I've done that thread. The next thread is on shaft 2 and it goes down, so I'm going to draw it here and it doesn't cross the other shaft. The next one, and I'll put my dot, the number 3 shaft goes on heddle 2. This is heddle 2, so it goes through there, and I'm going to draw it down this way onto that one, and it doesn't cross the others too. I had a choice. I could either make it go this way or that way, but since I just chose it that way. I don't know. It can go either way. Now we're back to, we've done that one, and now we're back to this one too. So this one can go down this slot. And I've done that one. Number 1. Again, 1. So we want to go through 1. 1 has to go through the slots and through a hole on this one. So this hole right here. So we'll come down through there and there. I'm trying to only put 2 threads in a slot is why I'm picking it that way. It doesn't have to be that way though. Okay, so we did that one. The next one is a 2. So that one goes through here. And I did that one. A 3. 3 goes through heddle 2. That's this heddle. So we'll go through here And I can choose to go through either way. So maybe this time I'll do it this way. And I have 2 through that slot. So it's a choice. And that's how I do it. And the last one, that's this one. Okay, and the last one is heddle 2. And I go through this way. So I've used, in groups, if I look at, say, 8 ends per inch, here's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've used 4, 8, so that comes out correctly. I'm finally ready to thread the loom. I've arranged my little threading chart, and I've used sticky notes to mark the little section that I'm going to thread each time, and then I move the sticky notes to the next section. So I'm going to be threading 1, 2, 3, 2. So this is 1, 2, 3, 2. And I pick up my bout of threads, and I've already marked where I want to put it, straight here. Okay, I pick up thread 1 from the cross. I see that it goes through the slot and then to a hole on the right. So I put my hook at the back through a slot, and then I pick it up and I go through the hole just to the right of it. I go to the next thread. It is a 2 and it shaft 2, and it's on 2 slots going through the same slot as the other one, and I put that in. Okay, next one is 3. 3 goes through the hole in the back heddle and a slot on the front heddle. So I'm picking up, but the slot has to be to the left, so I have to skip a slot here and go through the hole back here. Oops, there we go. Okay, now check my threads, make sure we haven't crossed anything, and we haven't. And I pick the next thread, and this one goes through the 2 slots, this slot and the slot next to the 3, which is that slot. And I check my threads, everything is going good, no crosses. Okay, now I move my sticky notes. I usually do it this way. I move this one to here and this one to the next group of 4. Tape that down there so you can see it. And I do this again. Okay, the first thread goes through the first hole that I see here, and the slot in the back. So it's a new slot that I haven't gone through, so I look and make sure that I have that. Nothing's crossed. Pick up the next thread. It goes through 2 slots, the slot next to the hole I just did and the slot in the back. And I got that. The next one goes through number 3 in the back, a hole, number 3, and the slot, and the same slot as I used before. So I do the hole here and the slot there, and I catch it, and you know, check it to make sure you're not crossing, because that's pretty easy to do. You'll find that quickly when you start weaving, but okay, and that's that one. I have, wait, I just did 3. Now I'm going to do 2 slots. The last thread in that group goes through 2 slots. And I've done 8 threads, which is about 1 inch. And I'll tie those off here and set them down as my first inch. Now I'm going to continue threading it in the same manner and tying it onto the front beam, and then we'll be ready to look at the treadling and the actual weaving. Before I go on, let's take a quick look at the threading from the front of the loom. You can see that these 4 threads, which are alternate with the other threads, are on the slots. And if I kind of pull those down in between, go down, I get these 2. There's 2 in the front. And if I work it around a little, you can see that there's 2 on the slot, the other slot. This one has 2 also on it. So that would be our beam 3. So that just shows you how it will look after you've threaded it. I have completed the threading of the loom, and now I want to show you the different shafts. So this is heddle 1 holding shaft 1. The threads are lifted for shaft 1. This is heddle 2, and it holds the threads for shaft 3. And if both heddles are down, you get the shed for the warps on shaft 2. We've now completed the threading part of this tutorial, and I usually keep the videos to about 12 minutes, and this one has taken, it's well past that now, so I've decided to break it into 2 parts, and we'll make a second video on the treadling and the weaving. I also noticed that when I threaded this, I used yarn that I saw in the initial tutorial on this loom, and they suggested using DK yarn. I think I should have used worsted weight yarn, and it has affected the set, so we'll talk about that in the second video too. So the second video will be on treadling and on sett. I hope you have learned something from this video, and I look forward to having you view the next video. You should be sure to do that. Thank you.